All right, Frank, the next film on your list is a modern reboot of a television classic. It's Lost in Space. Lost in Space is a 1998 action-adventure sci-fi film directed by Stephen Hopkins and starring William Hurt, Matt LeBlanc, Mimi Rogers, Gary Oldman, Heather Graham, Lacey Chabert, Jack Johnson, and Jared Harris. In Lost in Space, an intergalactic journey to find a new homeworld for humans as planet Earth dies is sabotaged, causing the mission and its members to be thrown off course into the unknown. Your thoughts on Lost in Space are? The original modern reboot, actually pretty cool. Christopher Nolan would later remake this and call it Interstellar. So Lost in Space is an interesting one because I remember when this film came out back in the late 90s, and I remember this film just getting trashed. Like, everybody hated it. I don't remember anybody saying a single good word about it. And I never ended up seeing it because I think A, I wasn't very interested, and B, it just didn't get good reviews. You know, had I not been interested and it gotten really great reviews, I might have still gone to see it just to see it. But when you're not interested and also nobody likes it, you have a tendency to just be like, no thanks. So when I saw it on the list, I was not thrilled about the idea of having to watch this. I feel like I say that on a lot of these. Sorry. But yeah, was not thrilled about the idea of having to watch this. But as I was watching it, I thought to myself, this is not bad. I mean, it's not great. It's not a Star Trek film or, a Star Wars film, or like, it's not some like masterpiece of sci-fi, but at the same time, like, it's not bad. I didn't think it was that bad. There were some things that are bad about it. The CGI is pretty terrible. There's CGI in it that like legitimately looks like just a cartoon. And I realize this is 1998. CGI is still pretty, at that point, it's still pretty much in its infancy. Jurassic Park did it really well several years before, but at the same time, you're talking about something that is a little bit more complex and on a much bigger scale than Jurassic Park. Space. I mean, space, aliens, all that kind of stuff. That's a big thing to do. But this movie did a terrible job of it. And the CGI just sort of like knocks you out of the film, I think, in my opinion. Another thing that bugged me is Matt LeBlanc is not believable as a tough military guy. There's things that he can play, but the role that he was in is not one of them. Gary Oldman is great in a villain as a villain. He was definitely bringing more to this film than it probably deserved. And it's kind of weird because that's a little lopsided. Mimi Rogers, for instance, like, I like her as an actress, but she's not, tuned in to what this movie is doing. Her performance is almost sort of like wooden. And Lacey Chabert, too, is kind of a strange, has kind of a strange thing going on in this film. I don't know whether that was from the director or whether that was her choice, but she has this sort of like weird, like goth valley girl thing going on, which to me just didn't make sense at all. It was very strange, and her performance actually kind of knocks you out of the film as well. The little boy in it he's a little off too. I don't think it was. I think that was the way that the character was written versus his performance. I think his character was just written poorly. Just to kind of go back to the CGI talk, the weird thing about this movie is like they do use miniatures and models in parts of it, and all of that stuff looks amazing, incredible, so much better than CGI, to the point where when you do see the CGI, you're like, why did you guys even do this? Like, you've proven that you can do a much better job with models and miniatures. Why didn't you just go all the way with it? But I'm sure in 1998 they were probably like, oh, cool, let's do some CGI. Like, that'll look really cool. And it did not. And I'm sure like it probably did not look cool even at the time. Like, even in the theater in 98, I don't think it would have looked cool. I wrote a note here actually that said the animated alien that they find, that's kind of like the one that they sort of adopt. It looks like something that would have been in a movie on a Best of the Worst episode. The thing that it reminded me of, I hate to say this, but it's true. The thing that it reminded me of was that movie that was on the Best of the Worst called The Incredible Bulk, I think, which is just a green screen movie where they used a bunch of like basically video clip art in the background. That's what the alien reminded me of.
Look out!
One thing that I found interesting about Lost in Space was the whole penny vision thing, which in 1998, I think probably seemed novel and interesting, but that basically predicted like vlogging, like YouTube and vlogging and stuff like that. You know, she's basically keeping a video diary on this like watch type device. So there's not video on watches yet, but I mean, it's getting pretty close. You know, we have a video camera right here on our phones, you know, and we can do penny vision style stuff anytime we want and upload it to YouTube and share it. So that's interesting, because I don't think that at that time anybody would have predicted that kind of stuff was happening. You didn't have that kind of like sharing infrastructure with people. I'm sure people still had like high-8 camcorders and stuff that they were doing video diaries with, but at that time there just wasn't any way to share it. The script, I think, overall was interesting, and you can see where they were kind of setting this up to be like a big franchise. Like, you know, okay, like what's the next adventure? You know, where's the next movie going to take them? I guess like it just didn't, like I said, at least where I was, people were like trashing this movie left and right when it came out. So I'm guessing it just did not do well enough to warrant, you know, going on more adventures, making more movies. But as I was watching it, I was like, you know, I might watch another Lost in Space movie with this cast. You know, if they had made it after I watched this one, I would consider it. So the one thing that did like really confuse me about this film though was the casting of Jared Harris. And I don't want to spoil who Jared Harris is in the film, but I will say that like they dub him with an American accent. And to me, the first problem is that the actor that they got is like not good. Like they do a horrible job at delivering those lines. I think more than likely what happened was they recorded him on set just speaking in his normal like British accent, and they had somebody else come in and dub the lines. But why hire a guy who speaks with a British accent in the first place? Like, why not just hire somebody who speaks with an American accent? I didn't understand that, and it goes on that list of things that like again knocked me out of the film. You know, it's just these little like nitpicky things where you're just like, like you're trying to focus on the film, but you're like, why is this happening? Why is that happening? And there were just one too many of them. You know, a lot of weird decisions in this movie. So, would I recommend Lost in Space? I don't know that I would recommend it. I like I said, I enjoyed it enough that I liked it. I enjoyed it. It was a solid movie, but I don't think I would recommend it to anybody. Next up on your list, Frank, is number 82. It's October Sky. Jake Gyllenhaal. Gotta have some Jake Gyllenhaal movies. This is another one of those movies that came out when I was a kid that like everybody in the world saw, but for some reason I did not see it. So I'm looking forward to seeing this, mainly because I remember people having an overwhelmingly positive response to it, but for whatever reason I just never got around to seeing it. So this is a good opportunity to make that happen. So Frank, thank you for watching. You can like, comment, share, subscribe, all that stuff down below, and I will see you in the next one.